customers call or sit down with you, what challenges are they actually describing? What problems are they really trying to fix?
I
Anybody
would
want to
say,
start?
yeah, sure. I'd say at its core, those problems are very similar to what we heard 5 years ago. It's the same sort of challenges. Staffing challenges are a common problem. Customer experience is often a common problem. Bad data entry, bad information, repeat calls. It's all the same challenges customers are experiencing because that's what their clients are experiencing. Those
Yeah.
problems haven't been solved yet. So what we have our customers come to talk to us about are the same exact challenges they've been dealing with years for years. It's operational challenges, it's financial challenges. A lot of times they'll come to say, we need AI, but we need to know what are we trying to solve with AI, right? That's
Right.
the actual driving force.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think about that, Marty?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, over my entire career, I'm amazed at how succinct the problems have stayed.
Yeah.
And, we see them in two worlds. We see them in the management of the contact center side, with agents, performance, turnover, all of these areas. And I think more now than in the last couple decades, the competitiveness of providing the best customer service is finally being seen as the advantage it really is. And that puts tremendous pressure on the folks managing to really know what is going on, right?
Yeah.
Understand the analytics, have the reporting, know what your customers are thinking, and then meet them where they want to meet you. And
Yeah.
that I think is one of, that's the last decade is about where does the customer want to meet you?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So that part of it really hasn't changed, but when you zoom out across everything that you're experiencing with customers and across all these industries, how much of that actually feels new with the advent of AI, artificial intelligence and everything new coming along? How much of that actually feels new versus kind of the same old problems that we've been trying to solve?
Well, I mean, I'll start on that one, Kyle. The technology feels really new. And I would say in the last 36 months. And it's really exciting. I see a lot of the old challenges and I see great ways to truly address them now, having worked through some of the earlier stages. And so I think from where we are, we're at a massive change in the CX industry. And we're kind of at the start of it, but the tools are now in place to execute on it.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I would
Kyle, would
say
you agree with that?
I do, but I would add that, 5 years ago, because the solutions were different, the way we were addressing them was different. And so it was about like better metrics and better dashboards and better information that then managers and people could actually take action on, right? So somebody had to interpret that data and then take an action related to it. In comparison, I think the expectations have changed. The expectations is that our software and our tools are digital coworkers, not, some metric that I have to absorb and take action from. Instead, the tool itself can actually take action. The tool itself can provide value. And that's different. So I'd say the problems are similar, but the way we're attacking them has become vastly different.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the big change is that software is now becoming an active participant in it. So that's cool. So really, what we're hearing is that the problems themselves haven't really changed. Same old sorts of problems that you guys mentioned. What's really changed is the capabilities that we now have to solve them. So let's rewind for just a minute and go back to the then. If you go back 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, or even further, what did we think that success in customer experience looked like at that time?
Well, I mean, obviously at that point, it was about deflecting calls
Right.
in a big way.
Yeah.
Self-service, how do we address multiple customers at the same time using chat, for example, is a very common thing. Maybe giving some basic information. So I call in, I need to know my account balance or something like that. It's able to handle very, very, small deflections.
Yeah.
So I think success then looked like deflecting to a different direction to reduce load on the contact center and ensure they can handle the weird, bizarre problems that cannot be handled via these other channels, right? Um, so I would say that was success before. I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think success looks a lot different today. It's less of deflection and actually resolution. Sure, Marty's
Yeah.
got some big thoughts on this.
Yeah. And One thing I want to ask is how much of that was a limitation of the technology at the time, and even when we're starting to think about early stage AI experimentation back in those days, how much of that was sort of a limitation around those tools at that time?
I think Kyle nailed it. I had deflection was kind of one of the big steps. I recall in those time frames, first call resolution was all the rage and discussion. And if you think about where that's evolving to now, right? How's that call resolved?
Right.
What tool is it going to be resolved by? And, even back 5 years ago, I was involved in a lot of projects, which I affectionately would call IVAs because I just didn't want to use the word chatbot because chatbots were generally at that point such a massive failure. We were trying to identify a different experience, but the experience was incredibly labor intensive,
Yeah.
right? And it took a lot of, training and managing. And so, that's where 5 years ago we were at. We were trying to move into actually solving customers' problems through a process and getting out of just deflection.
Right. So at the time, it felt like you were trying to solve for deflection, not even trying to contain it, not even trying to resolve it. At that time, it was good enough if you could deflect a few parts of it or capture some data up front. Is that accurate?
Well, I was trying to resolve it, but the technology was at
The
an interesting
technology.
point. Yes.
We
Yeah,
told you he was ahead of the curve. He's always
he
trying to do things
was.
ahead of the curve. Appreciate
That's
that.
true. It doesn't surprise me he was at the time. It's great. So, Kyle, do you have any thoughts about that of any kind of early use case where maybe the idea was right, but the technology wasn't quite ready yet?
Oh yeah, I mean we had many many examples of that. One that really draws to my mind is that we had a arena that we support, and a big part of their challenge was in event management. They wanted during concerts, games, whatever was going on within their arena to be able to help their fans actually navigate the arena, get support they needed, find a corn dog, get to the bathroom. Where can I get a handicapped, section? Well, what's the information that I need while I'm in the arena to solve the problem? What they were doing at that point was clunky. They had to be able to contact someone in the arena, and then they used radios to communicate. And there's no ticketing system or any sort of identification of what was going on. Their vision was that AI would solve that problem. And what we found was exactly what Marty found, which was as we were building this, it was clunky, it was difficult to deploy, it was error prone, and the end result wasn't what the customer actually wanted. So the project could never really come to fruition. Today,
Hmm.
that would be a relatively simple project in comparison, which is
Yeah,
absolutely
that's
insane. And I'll
that's
also
really
say Marty has said this is developed in the last 36 months. He's absolutely right. Since LLM models have come out, it's made a huge difference. But I would extend that and say in the last 3 to 5 months, we've seen an incredible change. And if you were testing technology a year ago and you aren't testing technology today that does these things, you're probably based on it poor information of what's possible.
yeah, yeah. So that's a great point. I think things are changing so quickly. You got to keep constant attention on this. So back then, kind of still rewinding back to that time, we talk a lot about staffing, a lot about the agent experience as well, and the employee experience. What sort of burnout and staffing issues did both of those examples cause at the time, or others that you can think of?
Well, I mean, everything was on the staff at that time, right? Everything. Chat was pretty limited. I took on a project with a very large client who wanted to do scheduling, and we wanted to do it through an IVA. And the difference then was you had to build a series of questions, force the customer through those questions.
Yeah,
At each question, come up with 1,000 intents for any answer a human could give. And so it was very labor intensive. And then behind all of that, you had limited APIs.
yeah,
And being a great client, they gave us a small site in Texas where everybody had amazing accents. And so that was an unaddressable moment 5 years ago. Now accents can be handled. And as Kyle said, the LLMs changed this world for me because things became conversational.
yeah. Yeah.
Specific to burnout, I mean, I talked to one of my favorite people in the world, runs a healthcare company, and they have 80 agents. She had an agent that had been there over 11 years and doing the same exact things, right? Appointment confirmations and insurance verification, prescription refills, that sort of thing, right? That was her best performer. Not because they were so fast, but because that person had emotionally flatlined. They didn't burn out, right? They just stopped caring. When I asked about that person recently, they let me know that they left 3 months ago to go work at Home Depot. Wasn't for more pay. It's because they got to talk to people about other things, different things, have creative ideas. We built jobs that require humans to act like machines to survive. That's insane.
Yeah.
The machines should do that. Let them
Right.
answer the complicated questions. Let them do the human intelligence work. We've
Right.
reduced them to bots. It's awful.
Yeah.
We want to solve that.
Right. There's a lot of this mundane work that's out there. So that's a great point, Kyle. Awesome. So one of the things now, kind of fast forwarding to today, I think looking back at those early automation efforts, I think clearly the vision was there, and organizations really wanted these conversational systems to actually help, but the technology just wasn't there. That's what was missing. And not to mention, like you pointed out, Marty, the ability to tie that into the appropriate data. I think both of your examples talked about that. So now we're getting to this point, and you guys talked a little bit about large language models, the new technology. That's really, really starting to change. So when you think about, compare that to today with the conversations you're having now, what really feels different to both of you when you sit with customers versus back then?
For me, it's that I can help them create an environment where it's conversational, where the customer is having that hilarious moment of, am I talking to a human or am I not talking to a human?
Yeah.
And you don't have to dig into hundreds of thousands of intents. You don't have to lay out a process. The customer can just start speaking. What do they need help with? How do they do it? We have much better access to the data. And so I'm looking for kind of full task processing. I'm not looking for deflection. I'm looking for kind of full task processing, creating real efficiencies, getting human agents into positions where they're solving human problems, right? And taking
Yeah.
these things off the plate. And, for me, my mind's already chasing the next phase, which is how do I have each of these tasks kick off workflows, kick off follow-up activities, right?
Yeah.
Not just finish an engagement or a call, but finish an entire transaction.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna
Absolutely.
pump the brakes. I love Marty. He's always future looking, right? But AI handles the predictable to a certain degree. Humans need to handle the weird, the angry, someone that just doesn't get it. Empathy,
Right.
judgment, de-escalation should still live in human world in my mind. And I think in the future, maybe AI gets to that level, but we need human in the loop for this process. The reality is what Marty said though is 85% of these calls are repetitive
Yeah.
and they can be managed and handled. And then the 15% that are angry, weird, goofy calls get to be
Yeah.
handled by the experts that really know what they're talking about.
Yeah,
Sorry, Marty.
super important to have that sort of high stakes element to it as well. So, and the great thing is it's a hybrid, right? You can manage both sorts of interactions. So when you think about this and some of those challenges as the customer's still exploring things, where do you see customers sometimes maybe getting it wrong? Like our customers, when we're having those conversations, what are they not thinking about right? What are they maybe still getting wrong?
They are boiling the ocean. There are so many times I sit down with a customer and they want to do everything all at once. And they have these big pictures, these big visions, and you ask the simple question, what's the broken thing that needs to be done today? And you get blank stares. We got to focus on what the actual problems are that we can focus to solve them, right? And I
Yeah.
think a lot of times people are just trying to find ways to make AI solve problems in their business or CX solve problems in the business instead of thinking about the big picture of what is broken, let's solve that and expand from there. We're trying to do
Yeah.
too much at once.
Yeah.
Solve a use case, solve another use case, solve another use case. All of a sudden, you're starting to solve a lot of use cases.
Yeah. Marty, how does that compare with your approach?
Well, once again, I agree with Kyle, not because he's my boss, but from that context, Adam, I'll take you back to something that made how we dealt with contact centers very different, going back many, many years.
Yeah.
We would always ask customers, "What do you want to report on?" Right? What are your KPIs? And we would build all of those things out before we would build a call flow because you've got to build call flows based on the reporting you want to get and what you want to know.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the AI projects, I'm asking people, what are the KPIs? Right?
Right.
What are the results we're looking for? What are the results we're looking to track?
Yeah.
Right? And then create the use cases,
Yeah.
right? Then look at where can we be effective? How do we make that happen? What are the results going to be?
Yeah.
Is too often I see, here's a problem I want to solve. We're going to answer it here. We're going to do this. And then 90 days in, I've got a bunch of folks going, well, where are these numbers coming from?
Yeah.
Well, what's this report all about? So
Yeah.
I think there's still a very good traditional approach by looking at, what leaders have to deal with and what they have to share with their C level, which is their reporting and their KPIs.
Yeah. What does success look like? And that's a great one to start with. I agree. I think looking at those numbers, understanding what the KPIs are going to be if there's a successful implementation. On the same token, what are some other patterns of a successful artificial intelligence implementation? What does that look like?
Material results,
Yeah.
financial impact, happier clients. I mean, those should be the real patterns, and you need to be able to measure them. Marty's
Yeah.
absolutely right. If you don't have KPIs to measure the AI that you're putting in place, you're probably going to fail at it. You're going to find that it's not achieving the things that you thought it would because you don't have defined KPIs to measure your success on and improve it.
Yeah.
I think that's super important. And going back to what I said earlier, just experimenting, finding that one thing, getting it in operation, and then expanding. I think
Yeah.
that's pattern of success I've seen. Those that try to do a giant solution to every single problem, maybe not. Hey, I'm bit and piecing this together and building a bigger package over time. That seems like a very moldable model in today's CX world.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing is that's possible. In the past, Marty will say, you had to buy a big monolithic product to deploy to do all of the things. That world
That's
is changing in a dramatic way where you can buy the right products and the right tools and bring them to bear, whether that's on a legacy phone system, a UC solution, an existing CX solution. You can layer these tools on top to bring a CX experience to your customers, which is different than it was in the past.
totally different. That's a great point. If you think back, it would require a huge capital investment and a huge commitment, and you had to have all the use cases there to justify whatever the project was. So yeah, that's a great point. I think now it's important to see how granular things have become. So Marty, would you agree with that, where you can focus on one specific use case or just a handful of use cases to potentially start with?
Yeah, it's a challenge I always have, just taking one at a time, but it's absolutely the right thing. And where we've gotten to with conversational AI and the APIs is so exciting. And some of the folks that are going to be in your series, Adam, if you hear some of the problems they've solved and you hear the voices, you hear humans wondering who are they talking to and executing on orders. And I think one of the favorite examples for me, Adam, was one of the big global delivery services realizing that when they couldn't deliver, people would literally show up to pick up their package at a site. And I think my P&L brain gets onto that and thinks about how much money they save when 30% of their packages get picked up by people instead of delivered. That one I just love. So,
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. So it's an interesting time right now where just seeing how we can potentially deploy these, and there is that level of granularity where it might not require justification across the board. You can potentially move a little bit quicker. But Marty, to your point, I think that the options are there to be able to think big as well, if you want to, and if you're ready for it. So thinking ahead with the future, the last few years, really, we've talked about this in this session already, but we've been kind of proving what's possible, and the next few years are really more about execution. So organizations are, if they're not today starting this, they're going to be moving from experimentation now towards embedding these capabilities. So let's take a look ahead for just a moment. So get out your crystal ball, and 5 years from now, what do you think customer, agent, or management frustration should disappear if we do this right?
Um, for me, I had written a note for this and I just kind of laugh at it, but I put first contact resolution, right?
Yeah.
It's really going to happen, right? And on a very large level, right? The the tasks are going to be so far beyond deflection, it'll be amazing for organizations. A big thing for me is how quickly customers can get access to up-to-date data, real-time data, right? Think about when we're all waiting for an Uber or a Lyft and the fact that we're constantly being updated and we can see what's going on. And think about that starting to happen in your customer service engagements in your business. How that changes the feel for the customer and their end. So, you know, I've spent many years, I feel like, waiting for the moments we're all having today, by the way, Adam. I see execution on a lot of these things today and what is coming, right?
Yeah.
And what can be done by these organizations. There's incredible efficiencies to have.
Yeah.
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 I
Absolutely.
think
Kyle,
a
what do you think?
travel agent is a good example of this. If you go back 30 years ago, Marty, you would have booked your airline ticket and your hotel with a travel agent, right? We've done that for the previous 25 years, 50 years, whatever. And then we went to online. There's Hotwire and Travelocity and Pave and whatever it is, right? And we can go there and choose your favorite kayak and order up whatever you need. Airlines, cars, hotels, etc. But you have a billion options. It's complicated. They don't know your preferences, and it takes a bunch of time. I think in the future world, the biggest frustration that disappears is not reactive support. It's proactive support. And what I mean by that is it's actually guiding them through that process like a previous world would have, where the travel agent is the AI or your CX experience leading you to the destination that you actually want. We're already seeing that in market. I think that's just going to grow dramatically over the next period of time. The other
Yeah.
thing I think is really important is voice is back and the future is bright, baby. Look, no
Yeah.
one enjoys typing on these tiny little screens. No one's enjoying
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
No one enjoys navigating a chatbot. They want simplicity. Our most
Yep.
natural way of communicating is what? Voice.
Voice.
It's how
Yeah.
we communicate every day, all the time. Look at how
Yeah.
our kids are communicating. They're texting less and they're using voice to text more. They
Right.
are literally not even learning to type in school, right? That's where my kids are at. They barely know how to type, but they move very quickly through a computer. We've watched voice move from the business experience being broken with IVRs and hold music and trees and just people don't want to call. We spent 30 years training customers to dread calling. The winners in the next 5 years will be the ones you want to call, the ones
Yeah.
that give you the answer like that, right? So that's what's
Right.
the frustration that disappears is interacting with a business today is still baloney,
Yeah.
sucks. In the future, it'll be easy. That's transformational,
Yeah.
absolutely transformational.
Yeah. And nothing takes away from the fact that for the most part, in a lot of cases, voice is the premium channel. So we look at that, and that's a great insight into where we are right now, because we are seeing things start to move. We are seeing customers moving in that direction. So the next 5 years, I think you guys covered it really well. So in that next 5 years, let's say 5 years from now, what does that look like? Expand on the success of that for both, not just the end customer, but also employees and also leadership as well. What does winning look like to them?
I
It's a
think in
trans. So
Go ahead. Go ahead, Marty.
it's a transformation to me. Like I love Kyle's travel example because unlike some folks on this call, I used to call a travel agent, get one succinct schedule, and knew everything that was happening. At least twice a year, I'd book a hotel room for the wrong week online, right? Or I showed up the other day for a flight to Austin, yet my ticket was for San Antonio, which I argued it
Yeah.
had to be their website. But But I mean, along those lines, I mean, we've seen evolution in other industries. And we've seen fear about those evolutions, right? And, I always like to use the example of Germany in manufacturing and how everyone was horrified that everything was going to be automated. And it quietly happened over 15 years and did not have a big effect on the workforce, on the economy, as far as challenges. And what I see is age-old problems being solved by people, right? With
Yeah.
support of software being an active, proactive piece of those engagements now. And as a consumer, we all know the feeling of excitement when you get on a call, for any of you who ever have to call airlines, you get it's going to be holding for 50 minutes and you solve that outside of waiting for 50 minutes, right? You can engage, get the right details, rebook, solve. Those experiences are amazing. And so I think we just continue to improve to the point Kyle said, in that I think the travel agent example is great because it's a world that will become very proactive, right?
Yeah.
You should go here. You should do this, right? And
Yeah.
it just becomes a yes answer. And the fact that everyone, Kyle says his children, both of my parents talk to their phones all the time. They
Yeah.
never type,
Yeah.
probably because they're having
Absolutely.
trouble
Absolutely.
seeing them. But
Yeah.
I
And
think in 5 years, putting a customer on hold will be like having a fax number on your business card. Technically functional, but absolutely embarrassing.
yeah.
Should never do it, right? And that's the world we should be living in, where you have instant access to support.
Yeah. Excellent. And before we move on to the next section here, gentlemen, any final thoughts on things, or I can?
It's an exciting time in this industry and for businesses to adapt and change. And if you're not researching these things and talking with Matrix about it, you're making a mistake. You should be working through these things. You should be figuring it out, even if you start small and incrementally grow, or whether you're trying to boil the ocean, we'll help you boil as best we can, right? That's what we're here to do.
Yeah. Excellent.
I think over my career, I've spent many years in this space, at times feeling a little powerless. I think the last decade for me was great on the agent side, WFM, QM, as we got into QMAI and being a help and train and make things better for the agent. I think right now what we're able to do for the customer interaction is incredibly exciting.
It
And
really is.
it should make everyone excited to kind of come to work and watch those improvements. They're awesome.
Yeah. Excellent.
I'd love to
Well,
thank you, Adam, for
yeah.
hosting us today, and Marty for being a participant in this. And I think we duck out at this point, so you can close this
Yeah.
up. So really
Thank you,
appreciate you,
guys.
Adam. You did a great job, and
Well,
these are
thank
always
you,
really
both.
interesting conversations to have with you.